I'm here to teach you today about an elite Scrabble strategy, specifically when to forego playing a bingo with the blank and instead make another good scoring play that holds the blank to bingo on another turn with. There are times where this is the right thing to do, but it can be very difficult to make the right determination of whether it's actually worth sacrificing the points by not playing the bingo on this given turn. And I will tell you that this is something that even very good human players, myself included, often mess up. And this example that I'm going to show you, I did not play nearly the best play. I made a significant error in this position. And it really came down to me not being able to find the best play here. If I had found the best play, I definitely would have preferred it to bingoing here. But what happened was I had just drawn this rack, which makes a bingo of sashimi. And I saw that sashimi plays on the bottom row, making the MU and IN hooks. And that scored 71 points for me here. And I ultimately decided to play that bingo, even though the opponent had just played QAT, creating the hook to the double word score for cats, so that I can make a play going vertically, making QATS doubled and also doubling the other word vertically here. And you'll see that sashimi doesn't quite fit in that spot. The S's are too early on. There is no other 7-letter bingo here. So I would have to play something other than the bingo if I were going to make the QATS hook in this particular case here. And the play that I played, you will notice that the static analyzer sashimi scores it as 71 points here. And that is just because it scores exactly 71 points on the board, and there is no leave. It leaves an empty rack afterwards, so there is no adjustment to the value of the play based on leave in this particular case. One thing you should be careful about, all of these things that static analyzer is looking at are not involving a sim. They are involving just taking the score of the play now and using a static adjustment number, basically, based on what it values as the leave of that position here. So that's where that 71 number is coming from. But there are actually several plays that the computer thought had higher values than 71. And I'm not showing them right now, but I will scroll up so you can see that the highest play, the best one, the one that I should have played, is She Eyes for 52 points. And this actually is a very nice example because it leaves only the blank. It is the only 6-tile play using all 6 tiles besides the blank in this position. And that means that the leave is the blank by itself. So from the point of view of static analyzer, you can actually look at the difference here between the score of the play and the equity of the play, the number value it gives, to understand what the computer thinks the leave value of the blank is here. So She Eyes is scoring 52 points, and the blank that it's leaving by itself, it is valuing at about 28 points here. And that's because 52 and 28 together adds up to 80. So that's how you can get that. And you could also see it as, okay, this 80 points means that, according to Static Analyzer, it's about 9 points more than sashimi, so it sees this as a 9-point error. So that's what it is from the point of view of the Static Analyzer. But I want to be a little careful about this. So one of the things that I think is important, static analysis often is all you need in certain positions, but positions that involve keeping the blank, that is rarely the case. And if you really want to get something close to the truth on something like this, you really do need to do a sim. And the reason you need to do a sim is because the value of the blank is very dynamic. How good it is in terms of a leave depends a lot on the board, depends a lot on what your bingo chances are, how early or late in the game it is, how much open real estate there is for bingos and those sorts of things. So I wouldn't want to just rely on static analysis for getting these numbers. But at the same time, I also want to be clear that for most humans, the computer is going to overrate the value of the blank and the leave because humans tend to make more mistakes with the blank. Even though we bingo more often with a blank, we also miss our best plays, miss our ideal bingo or best play a lot of the time with it. I think studies have shown that the most points of equity lost actually by human players are on the turns with the blanks because there is the most equity to lose, basically. So it is very much the case that you should take these numbers with a grain of salt and realizing that if the computer thinks something from an equity point of view is really good that keeps the blank, it might not be as good for a human unless you're capable of playing really, really perfectly with the blank. So keep all that in mind, but let's look at actually the simulation results here. And what they show is that this play, She Eyes, is the best play according to simulation, and now it thinks it's actually 13 points better than Sashimi. And in fact, the other plays that the computer likes more than Sashimi, only one of them is actually an S-hook making cats. And that is the play Ahis right here for 40 points. So even though Static Analyzer thought some of the other short plays like his and Ish and stuff like that were actually better than playing the bingo, the best bot analysis, which is doing the simulation, actually doesn't agree with that. And in fact, I thought this was also a little bit interesting here, that HI, a play which neither plays the bingo right now and also does not take the cat's hook right away, actually does better in the simulation than many of these plays, including the bingo Sashimi. And this is another one that I would take with a grain of salt. And I can see why this does very well here in terms of the player who's playing HI has all of the remaining S's in one of the blanks. There's only one other blank tile that could possibly be played to hook cats here. And it is very likely that you're going to get cats on the next turn. The opponent's not going to be able to take that away. And you might think with this leave, there's a good chance you're going to hit a bingo there, making the cats leave on the next turn. While that is true if you're playing against a computer, I think it's a little different playing against a human here, because a good human opponent would actually make a good inference that you are holding at least one S, if not both S's, when you play HI in this position. That is because when the opponent has just played QAT, setting up this big S hook here, which by the way is a very sort of computer hasty bot type play, because hasty bot is not using a simulation. It wasn't thinking about the long-term effects of that S hook here. It is a good example of the fact that a human opponent is going to react differently here and say, wait a minute, that person must be holding the S, because if they weren't holding any S's, they probably would have made a much longer play than HI to play a whole lot of tiles to try to race to an S to hit QATS first. The fact they didn't race to that S tells me that they're quite comfortable they're going to hit QATS before me. And therefore, the opponent might be inclined to actually make a blocking play intentionally, sacrificing some equity over computer recommendations just to block that cat spot. So I don't actually think HI is as good a play as the computer thinks it is here. And that is an example of how you have to sort of temper the advice from the computer with the differences between how humans and computers play. And if there is one place that humans are still better than computers at in terms of Scrabble strategy analysis, it really does come down to these situations that involve making inferences based on the opponent. A good human player will read through HI and say, wait a minute, they're probably holding both S's, whereas the computer won't be able to make that inference as easily. So, short story is, HI is probably not quite as good as the computer says, but She Eyes is. She Eyes is an excellent play and is definitely the best play here. And I wouldn't have needed a computer to tell me that. If I'd seen She Eyes, I would have definitely chosen it. It was just a matter of not finding it. But I will say that the other plays, such as Ahis, is, again, being the only one that really gets a significantly higher equity score. You could say it's a little bit better than Sashimi, but I would consider that to be just a pretty small difference. And I would say, actually, that it's not a huge error because the computer is sort of overvaluing the blank a little bit here by human standards. But the fact that I had a chance to make a play that was only 19 points less is something that I should have done. I should have been willing to sacrifice the blank for only a 19-point loss, or keep the blank around for only a 19-point loss, because keeping it in my hand would have been worth at least 19 as a leave value here. Now, you could actually still do a little bit of mathematics to say what the, not the static analyzer, but the best bot analysis, the simulation here, thinks of as the value of the blank tile on this particular board. And the way you can do that is to say, okay, I made a 19-point sacrifice here by playing Shiais instead of Sashimi, but it thinks this is 13 points better in equity. So what that means is that it actually takes the sum of those two numbers, the 19 and the 13, which would be 32. It actually thinks that the blank has a leave of about 32 here as the value. And we can say that's just the value of the blank because there are no other letters left with the blank. It would be different if it was the blank and some other tiles here. And I will tell you that 32 number sounds a little high to my ears, but I understand it is early in the game. The board is still wide open. There's a good chance of bingos coming down very soon after this. But again, for human purposes, I would say that 32 number is a little bit high. And the static value analysis is saying it was worth about 28. It's probably closer to what a human says, but I'd actually say as a matter of just a general rule of thumb for a human, probably somewhere around 25 points is how much you should often think of the blank as being worth leaving behind. And again, this has to be adjusted for the board. It has to be adjusted for other tiles and what your chances of bingoing on this particular board are. But in a lot of early game situations where you're still going to bingo relatively soon thereafter, I would say for humans, yeah, maybe sacrifice about 25 points to keep the blank. Probably not more than that. I think that's a good general rule of thumb. So in this case, a 19-point sacrifice is definitely more than worth it, and I should have played Shiais, and that was an error on my part. I hope this was helpful.